Welcome back to Digiburst, guys. It is the third week of BT10. We just had the banlist announcement for Crosspart, but of course that's not implemented yet. It was also Store Championship, so I prepared a really decent deck that I thought would counter all the decks that I expected for BT10, because I know my locals will go hard and play the best decks possibly they can. So I of course brought Imperial. Starting off with the eggs, we've got 4 Digimon. This is the one that draws one when you have jamming. This is the most important one. You just want to see as much pieces as possible, and you're going to have jamming through your XVmon effect. Super easy to do. And of course, if you DNA, you're going to be propping the effect twice when you swing with the XV and then with the Pale. So it's super good. Some people play the one that gains memory if you did the Dragon combo, but in this deck, we're not doing the Dragon combo too often. We're much more concerned about getting draws. Onto rookies. 4 Labramon. This is the one that gains you memory when you swing with something with jamming. You can prop this effect twice, just like the Demi-Vmon, if you go into the XV first to swing and then DNA over into Pale. So getting that double memory twice is super important, because it can help extend your plays even further to go into, say, Dragon mode or Fighter mode while still keeping turn, and that can mean you can go for even more damage. 4 of the Searcher Vmon and 3 of the gain a memory when you're unsuspending Vmon. This Vmon is much more important than the Searcher that gets you ones that are dual color, because this one can search Stingmons, which are a lot more important for doing the combo. You can also search the XV that has jamming. That's super important. Those are targets that the dual color one can't grab. So it's super important that you have this one rather than dual color one. And of course, gaining memory with the Vmon, this will only propped once through the Pale, not through the XV. But it can also prop through the Imperial Digimon Fighter mode too. That's pretty nice. But it's also once per turn, so if you do it with the Pale first, you won't prop the effect. So you'll prop the effect for this one less often than the Labramon, but it's still relevant considering that it is extra Labramons just on a weaker form. Also, you can go into Lydramons here as well over this one, unlike in the Labramons. Rounding out the rookies, we've got 3 Modokis. This is pretty relevant, this format, against Jessamon and against memory boosters. Super good card, especially when Jessamon tries to keep turn by playing Sisters. Modoki will lock that down for you, make sure they pass the turn. On to level 4s. 4 are the most important one, was the XV. Really no need to explain it. It has jamming and gives jamming, super important in order to do large pushes. And it combos really well with the Labramons. 1 Lydramon, had to cut this guy down. People aren't keeping guys on the board as much, so controlling the board with Lydramon isn't as important. And I've swapped out copies for more important cards, I think, which is the Leomons. Leomon's super important in this format. It's got blocker, it gains 2 memory on deletion, and it gives you a draw. Blocker, of course, when you have a tamer, but you probably don't have a tamer pretty often because you are playing 5 tamers. Getting the blocker and the memory gain, super important in order to force your opponent to pass turn when they attack. And of course, getting the draw can sometimes be super important. You can also use the Leomon as a memory bank to invest in your nursery, so you can use the 2 memory when you swing and have it die later. So you can use that stored memory to extend your future plays. So Leomon's super important in that sense. 3 of the Stingmon, 1 of Paris. I switched out 1 Stingmon for the Paris. This is to counter Solomons or Digimon that mean you can't reduce play cost. You only play the 1 Paris because you are drawing quite a lot. You'll see it pretty often, and in most times the Stingmon and the Paris are interchangeable. So yeah, they're fine. Last, level 4 is the Kuma. This one just goes over the Tamer just to guarantee game. The memory stripping sometimes important, but usually not really. Level 5s. 5 Pale, 1 Dino B, and 1 Chimera. Imperial Pale Digimon is the most important one, of course. Getting the unsuspend, triggering memory gain effects, triggering drawing cards. Extending, super important. It's exactly what you need to be doing, and rushing to this in order to steal out games very quickly. Dino B can sometimes be good for suspending and stunning a guy. The X5 can sometimes be an issue to as a blocker, so you can suspend and stun the X5 when you go into Dino V, and sometimes that can seal your deal. And Chimera can be good when your opponent goes really wide with a bunch of weenies, but otherwise Chimera has a really good combo with, of course, Fighter Mode, because Chimera can reduce it by 2 or 3k, and then Fighter Mode can then bounce something that is 10k or less, so you can reduce, say, a 12k guy down to 10 or 9k, and that means the Fighter Mode can bounce it back. Super solid. But it didn't really come up today. Level 6s, we've got 3 dragons and 2 Fighter Modes. These guys usually use Fighter Modes to bounce back guys. Bouncing back guys is super important in order to extend full lethal, especially if you can keep turn with it. There's a really neat combo with Davis Kens and Hidden Potential. So say you go into, you have your Hail, you've already done one swing and unsuspended. You can Evo up, you can activate the Hidden Potential, Evo into Fighter. It's suspended through the Hidden Potential effect, but you can suspend the Davis Ken to unsuspend. You can bounce back the guy that's 10k, and you can start swinging twice again, suspending your guy. Super solid combo, really good for extending, making sure you can actually edge out lethal in that way, especially considering that it is 0 cost with the Hidden Potential. I did that combo pretty often, and Hidden Potential, even though it's limited to 1, you are drawing so much with this deck that you actually find it pretty easy drawn into. It's it's just really, really good. The combo is really nuts. On the Tamers. 3 Davis Kens and 2 Davises. Once you have one Davis out on the board, the other Davis doesn't matter unless you really need to get that search in order to find your pieces. Davis Kens are much more important because, one, they give you memory, but they can also be used as an extender to unsuspend a guy in order to do more damage. Just super solid good things. And also, it does give you more memory compared to Davis, which always sets you to 3. So yeah, more Davis Kens, really, really important. And of course, they're all blues, so you can go over Kumon with both of them. Options. 2 memory boosters. You want to play a little bit passively with this deck until you have your combo. So Tamers, Searcher, Rookie Searchers, and memory boosters are super important in order to not invest in your plays before you can, before you have all your pieces to commit with them. So 2 blue boosters I think were really good in order to search out your pieces. 2 Megadeth, just spot removal. This is really good against Jessamon when they pass turn and they haven't done lethal. You can potentially bounce back a Jessamon and set them back so they haven't got a stack anymore. I did this once and the opponent wasn't able to find the right pieces to build a new stack. And because they couldn't build a new stack, I was able to just beat them out for a game after recurring enough pieces for it. So Megadeth, really good against Jessamon as long as they don't go into Genkumon. Genkumon of course has protection against bouncing and returning to deck. So you just got to use it in the right circumstance. Double Hamspark. Really, really good in security, get into memory, can often force a turn pass. Really good against Crossheart because the Crossheart needs to be super careful with their memory in order to do the rushing and the Digicrossing. So if they hit a Hammerspark, sometimes it can just mean that they miss lethal. So Hammerspark also for extending plays. Sometimes you just draw into it through all the drawing effects, and you need that extra memory in order to extend it into a fighter mode. So Hammerspark at 2 I think is the right ratio, and it's really good for that. Ice Ball. Didn't really come up too often. It's at 1, so sometimes you just don't see it. Sometimes it's security, and the gain 2 memory also just functions just like the Hammerspark, where it can edge out the game and make sure your opponent forces turn path and misses lethal. So it's really good for that. And of course, Hidden Potential, I've already said enough about that, I think. So the reason I picked this deck is because it has excellent matchups against typical BT10 decks, especially DigiXros decks. Crossheart, for example, puts a lot of rookies on board, especially Shoutmon. I had a game where they hard played the Shoutmon to get the search. Then I went into Imperial to, then I went into Paildramon to bottom deck their Shoutmon. And once that was in the bottom deck, they never saw a Shoutmon again. And by doing so, they lost the ability to rush with their X4s and X5s. And without that ability, Crossheart is extremely limited on the damage they can produce. So they pretty much just sealed the deal. Two of their Shoutmons ended up being in security, and they never saw the fourth one in that entire game. Also, another tech against Crossheart is Fighter Mode. Fighter Mode bounces on that's 10k or less. That's the perfect target to bounce back a Cross 5 that has blocker. The X5, all the stuff underneath there, all the sources, they go to the trash. So if they invested, say, the Shoutmon or all these pieces that they might not have in their hand, and they go to trash, they can no longer cross with it through the Taiki or through the hand. So in that way, they lose all their pieces, and they can no longer cross without wasting a bunch of memory. And in that way, they have lost the game because they no longer have the resource that they need to continue. That's how I beat out one of my Crossheart matches. I also played against Blue Flare. Blue Flare, very conditioned on your opponent having cards on the board, lots of Digimon on the board, because you can set up your combo in the back and just say play one rookie or have your tamers or your memory boosters as searches. You don't have to invest in guys on the board, and that way your opponent is not playing the way they want to play. And then once you have one guy on board, you just suicide it off. So yeah, they're not propping the effects from the unsuspending when they have multiple things, or stunning when they have when you have multiple things. So that was a really easy matchup to go against. The hardest matchup was of course Jesmon, because of Genkumon's effect for making the board protected against bouncing and returning to deck. I had to be very careful and play as quickly as possible with my deck in order to get in before they could Genku or search their Genkus. So that was a difficult matchup, but luckily my Jesmon opponent didn't see their Genkus in time, and when I removed their Jesmon with the Mega Death, they couldn't rebuild their stack, so that was a sealed game. And my very first round of the match was of course Blue Hybrid. That was actually very difficult. I had to play extremely tight on the memory in order for them not to gain their resources that they would need and exploit my guys with no sources. I had to be very careful with their security hits. But luckily their security wasn't too overpowered, and I was able to wrap that one up very convincingly. So those were my 4 matchups. I think this is an excellent deck going into a BT10 despite the ban list, and I'm really excited to see these older decks that a lot of people have a lot of experience with go into BT10, because I think they have a lot of mileage, and I think that they'll be very surprising to people that are expecting a lot more BT10 centered decks, because when a new set comes out, a lot of players just hop on that and they don't consider the older decks that I think can put in a lot of work. That's enough rambling from me. If you want to check out the matches, I've already got them up. I put them up a few days ago. They're really tight, exciting games, and I think you'll learn a lot from them. And subscribe. I'll see you next time.